Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, Namaskar. This is Yogesh Brahmankar. I am the Innovation Director at Innovation Cell, All India Council for Technical Education, New Delhi, Government of India. Once again, I welcome everyone for this podcast. Today we have one very interesting personality, a mechanical engineer turned into an entrepreneurship educator and now a CEO of an incubation center. Professor Ismail Akbani is with us. So welcome Ismail.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Welcome to AICTE and welcome to Innovation Cell, and I'm so happy that you are here for this interaction on innovation and entrepreneurship.
I'm also excited to see how this goes.
Very first question is that somebody who started teaching theory of machines maybe in 2010, 2011, and today you are conducting sessions on how to run an incubation center or design thinking, and now you have become an entrepreneurship educator and you're also running the incubation center. So how do you look at this journey? So this is a personal question.
Yeah. So I think there are a lot of parameters that have played a role over there. One is I come from a business family myself. So I usually call myself a first generation employee because I'm the first person in my entire family tree who took up a job. And second, when I was teaching this core engineering subjects like machine design, theory of machines and all back in 2010-11, one thing I would always feel that no matter how interesting you try to make it, how practical you wanted to make it, and back then of course we did not have all these AI tools and animated videos and all those things. So all that you could do is maximum make some presentations with some cool graphics on it. But still the students would not be able to relate to you. You talk about a 4-bar mechanism, you talk about a pantograph mechanism in the class, and the student is thinking, when am I ever going to see in my life? Right? And probably after 5 years of completing that course, when he goes to some company, some industry, he might be actually able to see that mechanism in actual implementation over there. But then when I started teaching entrepreneurship, the very first class, I realized that anything that you talk in the class, the students could relate very well. You talk about a Flipkart, they have used it. You talk about a Parlegic example, they have used it. So that connectivity was very easy to build in the classroom when you talk about entrepreneurship or innovation as compared to an engineering subject. And that was one thing that hooked me into entrepreneurship, that this is where you get to enjoy in the class. Students are easily connected to you. And plus you are not restricted to a limited number of examples that are in textbook. In case of engineering, you have a limited number of mechanisms, some equations, some derivations, your entire life circles around that. But when we talk about entrepreneurship innovation, the world is your classroom, the world is your syllabus. And so you can pick up from anything. And then even while I was teaching engineering theory of machines, I had this habit of bringing the external world into the classroom. So I remember once going to a zoo. In Pune there is this Katra zoo is there. We went to that zoo out there, and in the zoo we saw that lawn sprinkler mechanism. And while in the same period I was teaching the similar mechanism in the classroom. So we took a video of that and I brought it to the classroom. And I asked the students, where is this being used? Without giving them the context. And everybody was talking about this. They said it's a farm, it's a garden, it's a lawn, right? And then when I revealed that this actually is being used in a zoo, that led to a very interesting discussion. But those kind of examples, bringing them in the classroom, engineering is a bit of challenge. I have recorded the sugarcane machines because there's a lot of belt drive and gear drive in a sugarcane juicing machine, right? So when you teach belt and gear drive, then in the class when you go and ask, how can one machine have a V belt as well, and then there's a spur gear also, right? And how that reduction works. So and then you ask them a common example, they're not able to talk about it. They'll talk about automobile, they'll talk about some such, this happens in an Audi car or this happens in that car. But when you say whatever you're learning happens just right outside in your street in that sugarcane juicing machine, that guy selling 10 rupees sugarcane juice. So those kind of things has always been my area of interest to bring in the classroom. But in engineering, that became that was a bit of more challenge as compared to entrepreneurship, and so I think that was a natural shift. And of course, coming from the business family background also helped, because all my conversations growing up in the family also were around business. So that business bug was there, and I said, okay, if I'm not going to be getting into business right immediately, I might as well help and encourage other people to get into that. So that was, I think, the transition that happened.
But can entrepreneurship be actually taught? What is your thought on this? Because there is a debate goes on, leaders are born
Yeah,
or leaders
yeah.
are met. Same debate is there for entrepreneurs
I
are
think-
born.
I
So can
think-
entrepreneurship be
I
taught?
think this has been happening for years, and this probably will keep on going perpetually. And to be honest, there was a time in my early days, I used to believe that entrepreneurship cannot be taught. Back in 2013, when we did a first workshop at Symbiosis Institute of Technology on entrepreneurship, and we got in some speakers. I was the one coordinating it, but I was thinking, "Okay, one day that guy is going to come, and what about entrepreneurship will teach." But when he came and he started doing some activities, I remember he did some activity on bringing out a newspaper and asked students to go through the headlines and come up with, identify some problems from the newspaper and then propose some solutions. And I thought, okay, maybe you cannot teach entrepreneurship, but you can at least facilitate that process, right? So, and then over years, I've started to believe that you cannot teach entrepreneurship. That I agree. Again, there are multiple parts to this answer. One is we say entrepreneurship is part science and part art, right? So at least the science part of it you can teach, because anything that is science can be taught. We all agree to that. And the part that is arts of entrepreneurship, I think again a part of that also can be facilitated, because there are arguments again that the art part of entrepreneurship cannot be taught. And then I said, then there are a lot of other art forms. You have acting schools, you have music schools, right? You have drama schools. That's all art. So if there are schools teaching acting and drama and all, and again, they don't claim that they will make good actors. Just because you go to acting school doesn't mean that you will become the next Amitabh Bachchan, right? But what all that the schools do is they facilitate your learning, I think, right? You have that talent inside you, that actor is inside you. So there is this story of this famous sculptor who was once asked, when he created a very nice statue, and he said, you built a very good statue out of the stone, and he said, I have done nothing. The statue was already inside the stone. All that I have done is remove the unwanted parts of the stone, and the statue emerged. I think that's the role we as entrepreneurship educators play, that those talents, that creativity, that skills, the potential is already there inside the student, but the unwanted part, the layer, the dust that has settled on them because of the environment they grew up in, because of the thought process they have. I think that's the role we do of removing that, and the entrepreneur then emerges. So that's one take. And second, as I said, that we may not be able to teach, but we can definitely facilitate that process. And with the help of entrepreneurship educators, mentors, incubators, what a typical student or even early stage startup would learn in a year, probably you could help them do it in 3 to 4 months or 6 months, and without risking a lot of time, energy, money. Because when we work with a lot of startups, we have seen that journey happening, we see that pattern repeating.
Yes.
So the first time founder may not be able to see, but when we see them going in the direction, we know where this is headed and what's the next bit, where he probably would have an obstacle, and we can warn them, we can help them. So if we look at from that perspective, yes, we can facilitate, but I don't believe we can teach it in a classroom, especially not in a classroom, unless the world is the classroom. If you treat the world as a classroom, then maybe.
So wonderful thought. So we as MIC, we promote innovation and entrepreneurship across academia. I'm sure you are aware
Yeah.
about the network of e-cells, and then we conduct boot camps. So we are helping, encouraging and enabling institutions to promote entrepreneurship, and many institutions are actively promoting entrepreneurship. So when institutions are promoting entrepreneurship, what are those aspects which receive very less? Because you were on both the sides. You were teaching entrepreneurship, then you are promoting entrepreneurship in an university campus now as a CEO of an incubation center. So what aspects receive less attention compared to the other ones
Yeah,
when institutes are trying to promote entrepreneurship?
That's one thing that is now very close to my heart, and I keep talking about it a lot. And in fact, whatever I'm going to talk now is something that I have committed the same mistakes or crimes, if I may use the word. So guilty as charged. But I think we have started focusing too much on creating startups, creating enterprises. Right? The focus is too much on that how many startups I create from my campus, how many enterprises will come. And one thing, and that's very important aspect that gets missed, is building the founders. Right, so we want to build startups, but we don't want to focus building on founders. So normally say when you're talking about promoting entrepreneurship, right, on a lighter note, I sometimes joke that my definition of entrepreneurship in a lighter note is that there's an entrepreneur, he who goes, sits in a ship and travels. That's entrepreneurship. Now, if you remove the entrepreneur from that word, it's just a ship. So what we typically do is we focus all about entrepreneurship. We will do workshops on business models, go to market strategy, branding, this, that. But rarely do we talk and focus about building that entrepreneur, right? And building that entrepreneur is about building his capability and also building the mindset. So I think that entrepreneur mindset building part and the capability building part is one thing that takes a backseat, maybe because the outcomes of that exercise or those efforts are intangible. When you work on the startup side, you get to see numbers. So I have 10 startups, I have 15 startups. But how do you quantify the change in the mindset of an student? How do you say, okay, this student was there and now I have made him more entrepreneur? How do you quantify that? And anything that does not get quantified, does not get reflected on your performance metrics, I think that's one reason those things take a backseat when it comes to promotion of entrepreneurship.
I think that's one about promoting entrepreneur mindset, and we at MIC we also talk about that we are into a cultural intervention of promoting entrepreneur mindset in academia.
Yeah. So culture, as you rightly said, and that reminds me of Peter Drucker's very famous quote where he says, "Culture is strategy for breakfast." So I think we are too much focused on strategy for entrepreneurship rather than building a culture for entrepreneurship.
Yes. So when institutions start promoting this, what are the key aspects or what are the important dimensions an institute should focus on? See, because we have institutions who are doing good, we have institutions who are struggling, we have institutions who have intent, but they are not able to figure out. So I think if you can maybe throw some light on this, what are the important dimensions institute should focus on when they're promoting?
Yeah, so I think rightly the way you said, the intent that when we see the institutes not performing good, I think most of the cases it's not that they don't want to, they have a good intent, but they are unable to, because I think this entire entrepreneurship promotion business is fairly new, right, compared. So the institutes understand how to run academic system, they know how to run your examinations, they know how to run your entire promote or encourage research. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, since it's fairly new, and most of the people who are sitting in the senior positions, so even when we were students, we did not have anything about entrepreneurship. We did not have any course on entrepreneurship.
We did not know even the spelling.
I saw the word for the first time in a master's when I went to VNIT for doing MTech, and there was this thing called an entrepreneurship cell, and I could not even pronounce that word. Right. So my first exposure came that. So I think because of that, we intent is there, but we don't. Though that thanks to institutions like MIC, AICTE, a lot of frameworks are being created, a lot of support systems are being created. But I think if you look at, if I had to, from based on my journey and again the interactions I had with a lot of stakeholders, what we follow even at Mahindra University and IIC Mahindra is a 3E approach, right? So you say, if you want to build that culture of entrepreneurship, there are 3 dimensions that I feel that we should focus on, and one is the entrepreneur himself, of course, as I mentioned earlier, right? How do we build an entrepreneur? How do we convert the students into entrepreneurial rather than just making them entrepreneurs, right? So in fact, when we used to run the entrepreneurship cell at Symbiosis, a part of the vision statement was that making engineers more entrepreneurial. We never said that we want to make them entrepreneurs. Right? So building the entrepreneur, and building the entrepreneur happens not only in entrepreneurship courses. That's another misconception, that if I want to build entrepreneur, I need to run a course on entrepreneurship or a workshop on entrepreneurship, right? You're teaching some normal circuit design course, or maybe you're teaching some IoT course. Within that also, if you ask them to go back, and rather than giving them a ready problem statement, you say go to the society, find something that's broken in our own institute, and can you figure out a solution to that? You are in a way hammering that entrepreneur mindset over there, right? So I think building the entrepreneur mindset, and of course the capability in terms of their communication, in terms of their leadership skills, in terms of critical thinking, we keep talking about, right? To creative thinking and critical thinking. That's one part, I think, and that can happen through trainings, through boot camps, through workshops, through interactions. Second is, of course, the enterprise part of it. So first is entrepreneur, second is enterprise. So when the entrepreneur, when you build entrepreneur, now they move on to building the enterprise. So when it comes to building the enterprise, now is the time where they need funding, right? Maybe they need a lab, depending upon the stage, right? And funding, when I say, I'm not talking about 1 crore, 2 crore, maybe 10,000, 20,000, starting something, right?
Maybe they need customers.
Some customers, yes. So they need some place to work, right? So that's when they will at least need office space, they will need a lab, they will need some good connections, they will need some good mentors over there, right?
Yes.
And that is where they will need some kind of course, also capacity building in terms of how do you present and pitch, right? And I think this happens in stages. What I've seen is there are institutes that are right in the stage where they should be focusing on building the mindset, and I see how to do storytelling and storytelling for pitching happening over there with not a single student in the room having any idea to pitch, and we're talking. So I think that those kind of get messed up sometimes. And third and very important thing, I think both this entrepreneur and the enterprise, they operate in a larger layer of the environment, right? You call it environment or you want to call it ecosystem, right?
Yes.
Now the environment has to be conducive, right? If you that environment starts with where your management and your faculty, they play very huge role. So do you have policies supporting entrepreneurs, right? So at Mahindra University, we have policies that support students. Okay, we have in fact gone sometimes and said, okay, we help them give extended deadlines for this assignment submission. For example, if he's working on a really important startup idea, and if he has a pitch with some investor,
Yes.
right? So we are flexible. Okay, we don't want you to stop you from that pitch just because your assignment deadline is there. So are there those kind of policies promoting students? Again, policies for faculty. That's very important. Because other thing I realize is in the environment part, and again, I think going back to the earlier question, one thing what is missing is we are focusing on promoting entrepreneurship among students, but we are not focusing on promoting entrepreneurship among faculty.
Yes.
And faculty is a huge chunk of that. So if you say, okay, I want to make my students entrepreneurial without making my faculty entrepreneurial, I think that's not going to happen, right? So we have to focus, equally focus, if not more, on how do we make our faculty more entrepreneurial. That could be in their own research, that could be in their own patents that they're developing in their own way. It doesn't have to be the same way we do for students. So I think the environment building has to happen both for the faculty as well as for the students. You need to, what are your policies in terms of IP? Are you supporting them for filing patents, right? Do you have policies wherein if a student is working on a project, final year project, right, and rather than forcing him to publish a research paper, if he goes and presents in a business plan competition, let's say at some IIM Ahmedabad or IIM Calcutta, and he gets into top 3 over there, right? Does he get an equal status or equal marks as compared to somebody who has presented in a research conference,
Yes.
right? So I think those kind of policies, environment, if there are these 3 dimensions if we work on, I think, because if this environment angle is not there, I believe the other 2 will not give you the results that you expect.
You require conducive environment.
Environment,
In fact,
environment.
yes,
It's like a soil.
definitely. And it can go up to, I guess, to deferred placement.
Deferred placement also there. So we have put that in policy and Mahindra. So we are not yet, I think, implemented it fully, but that's a part of the policy that I proposed 2 years ago, that in the future we want to
I'm
go to
assuming
that.
you are adopting NISP. So we
So
have
that's a part of it.
nice policy.
So lot of, I think, in fact, a lot of the policy that we built at Mahindra University actually is inspired heavily from the NISP. A lot of things, and in fact, so I'm happy also to share that taking inspiration from NISP, we have very strong support policy for faculty startup. Right now, as I speak, I think we have at least 4 or 5 star faculty startups,
Wonderful.
faculty with PhD scholars registering, making revenue, some making revenue even in crores. So,
I think it's a
and-
good feedback and good encouragement for us also, because while this year we are revising NISP 2019 guidelines, and the point related to deferred placement is also added. We have
Right.
not yet declared the new revised policy.
No, but that's
Okay?
that's a very good
But
point.
the ministry will definitely take a call
In
on
fact,
it
I
at the
think-
right time
Yeah.
for declaring the
I
new
think,
policy, revised version of the
Yeah,
policy.
so there was a point in NISP also about the internships, right? So we are doing that also. So we are allowing students, if they're having a startup, they can consider their own startup as an internship rather than going and
Yes.
working somewhere
Yes.
else. So a lot of, I think, and when that comes from a body like MIC or AICTE, it becomes at the institute level. So it becomes to make for us, people like us to make a case to the management, that So I think that has played a huge role in our policy shifting.
You said something about that we are not promoting faculty to be entrepreneurs,
Yes.
right? But then there are policies like NISP,
Yes.
and I think now people are more aware about NISP. More than 3,000 institutions have adopted also. There is pseudo adoption also. We are also aware about that. It's very tough in academic scenario. But then there is one interesting debate happens, that teachers who are teaching entrepreneurship, are they entrepreneurs? Do they have business experience, or were they entrepreneurs? So somebody who is not himself an entrepreneur, who himself is not an entrepreneur, he is teaching entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So how do you look at this
It's
particular
interesting.
aspect?
There are a lot of parallels about this as well. So I normally sometimes say these days we'll talk about all these corporate hospitals.
Yes.
They have CEOs. Now the CEOs running these hospitals are not doctors.
Okay.
They have never been to operation room.
Okay.
Right? Because running a hospital doesn't require you to be a doctor. Right? It's a different job, right? So I think if we look from that perspective, the teacher's role is not supposed to be okay. I know, and this confusion comes from this myth or this mindset that if I am a teacher or a mentor or an incubation manager, incubation head, whatever, I am the only one who's going to take a student from idea to IPO. I think no mentor can claim that. The journey from idea to IPO will have multiple mentors, multiple organizations coming, and they will have to play their role. So if you understand that and say, okay, what is my role at this stage, right? So typically, and again, I'm talking from the point of view of a teacher who's not been an entrepreneur, who is not experienced, qualified much in entrepreneurship, right? Just teaching some maybe chemistry, physics, English, maybe history in schools, right? Or in higher education, maybe teaching some engineering subjects. And because teachers usually are the first point of contact for students, right? Because when they have some idea, and a lot of students, they may not have any connect directly to the outside world, so they end up reaching to a faculty that, sir, I have this idea and I have that idea, right? And I think
that
a lot
notion
of
guru
still
guru
exists. It's still there. So at least for some students, it's still there, And what happens is, knowingly or unknowingly, we end up killing the ideas there. We think we are doing good because we are not trained formally, right? So one thing the first thing I would say is, that if I am a teacher and who's really interested in helping the student, because when you're helping a student in entrepreneurship, you're also in a way contributing to building the country. It's a nation building activity, as well, right? Of course, even when you're teaching in the class in physics, also you're helping them. But I'd say when you're teaching physics in the class, or when you're teaching mechanical engineering or theory of machines, I was teaching, you are making him an employee. You're training him to become an employee. When you're teaching entrepreneur, you're training him to become an employer, right? So that's a difference as well. So one is, of course, you should start getting trained. You should start looking for avenues. I think a lot of avenues are there. The MIC did so many faculty development programs last year. I think even DST keeps doing those kind of programs. So whenever there's an opportunity, even if not through this formal faculty development programs, but we have a lot of online learning resources. You have Coursera, you have YouTube and all those things. So one is that, okay, you don't remain there, okay, I am a physics teacher, I don't know. You don't know, but you can know. There's this growth mindset, Carol Dweck says that I don't know yet wala part. Right? I don't know yet, but can I develop that capability? Now, moving apart from where you are right now, I think without even going onto that track of becoming an expert, you want to keep doing what you're doing. So I normally talk about 4 C's a teacher can do, right? So one is when a student comes to you, and there are two of those C's are interaction related, the way you interact with the student, and 2 are beyond that interaction. So first is when a student comes to you, and typically our response usually is, this will not work. Has anybody else done this? Why nobody else has done it? And
very critical.
Very critical. And we do it with good intent. I have done that. I have done. I'm sure I can say almost 80-90% of the entrepreneurship educators, mentors who today are very mature, but they have done that mistake in the early days. So I think the first thing we should keep in mind is curiosity.
Right? We are idea killers also.
In a way, right? So I normally say that we have to avoid that tendency. With the intent of doing good, sometimes we end up doing more harm to the students than good. So first thing I say is that you have to be curious. So when a student comes to you, no matter whatever the idea, he comes and says, I want to build a restaurant on Mars. You cannot just say, I don't have the money, you buy. Show some curiosity, right? That, okay, how are you going to do this? Where did you get this idea from? What is your thought process behind it? Why? So, and I talk about the why part also. Why do you want to do this? So the moment you start showing some curiosity, the student feels, okay, there is somebody who's willing to listen to me, right? There's somebody I can count on, somebody who's not judging me. Otherwise, what happens once you shut them down, the next time they don't come up with their idea and share with anybody, because they think if I go to anybody, not this faculty, but any other mentor also, what if they'll shut me down? So curiosity is one. Second, I think, and this everybody can do. You don't have to be entrepreneurship expert to show curiosity in their idea. Second is instill some confidence in them. Right?
Yes.
So rather than saying, ye tere se nahi hoga, you will not be able to do this, you can say, how can we do this, right? Or you don't have the resources. Rather than saying, you don't have the money for this, or you don't have the technology for this. The question can be tweaked a bit and say, okay, how can we get that resource? Yes. How can I help you get that resource, right?
Yes.
Whether it will actually happen or not, that's a different story later. But at least you're instilling some confidence. And again, you don't have to be an expert to instill that confidence. Third is the connection. The third C is connection. That as a teacher, whatever connections you can build with the outside world, you have alumni working, right? There's so many alumni working in some good places. The only connection we unfortunately keep with the alumni is alumni meets every year. So either we send an email, and I was an alumni in charge also at one point of time, so I know that we are done. Once in a year when we want to do alumni meet, we reach out to them. Second, when any ranking body asks you data of your alumni, how many of your alumni are working in corporates, how many of your alumni are entrepreneurs, that is when you write them emails. That
third is placements.
Or placement, you reach out to them, can you hire, right? But I think a lot of those alumni, even if they are not entrepreneurs, I have students that I have taught, they have graduated in 2014, 15, are working with Google and Microsoft, right? And senior positions now, they're 10 years into the corporate profile, right? Can I connect to them? And if I call them, at least if I taught 500 students in 10 years, at least I would have 5 students out of 500 who will pick my call even at 11 at night. And if I say there's this one student who's struggling something, can you just spend 30 minutes online? So that kind of a connection, alumni, you if you have worked with other institutions, you might have your colleagues from other institutions, right? So you can, that's the network we never leverage. Once we leave an institution, we are like, okay, Tata is a forever divorce for me with that institution. But you have left the institution, you're not left the relationship in the institution, right? So you can build on that. And then
That's correct.
slowly local. If your management might have a lot of institutes, the management actually they are business people, right? So they have some
They have
business in
industry.
they have
Yes.
industries, right? So we don't leverage that, or they if they themselves are not, that they have connects. Every management has some connects with
Yes.
some local industries.
Or every city
Every
has
city has
good small scale
so that
industry, medium
connection
scale
part,
industry.
if we can build small, right? So that again, I don't have to take you from idea to IPO. Or if I can only connect, I remember when in my early days there was this student, you also know Rishabh Agarwal, was building, and he was going to pitch one day, and he calls me around 9:10, around 8:30 or 9, I think, saying, sir, tomorrow I have a pitching and I don't know how to do the financial part, financial planning. I'm not a finance expert. I say, even I don't, probably you know more than me. What do you do? And then I had a good friend, faculty from the institute, good in finance. I call her at 10 in the night and say, I'm sorry to disturb you, but can you spend 30 minutes? The guy has 9 a.m. morning, he has a presentation. Then 10 p.m. she spent 30 minutes online with him and helped him, and he ended up having some good performance over there. So that connection, all that I did was connect. I was that conference call connection guy over there.
But you have to build that with other
We
faculty
have to
also,
build. You have to build
because you
that.
should pick up your call at 10
Yeah. So
p.m.
that is one thing that we actually with the miracle building, and I think we end up the elections again. We can keep talking on that a lot. That it does not have to be transactional, right? It has to be,
Yes.
because people networking, people say it's always it's not transactional. You have to build that relationship, and as somebody told me long back, that building a relationship is like a bank account. The more you keep depositing today, the more you cannot if you can just keep depositing it, one day you will run out of the goodwill, and you will have nothing. So
You'll keep getting some interest.
yes, so your withdrawal rate should be lesser than your deposit rate into that relationship.
Yes.
I think that part. And the last C again is a little bit, I think, problematic for a lot of people, but last C is for chaos. So can we embrace chaos, right? So there are students sometimes,
Embrace
embrace
chaos in
chaos.
the
Yes, chaos,
institutions.
right? So chaos, because
Okay.
clarity begins from chaos, I think, right? If you say I want everything has to be perfect, then that's not a place for entrepreneurship. Because when they're trying something new, they're experimenting, they will fail, they'll make mistakes, they'll make a mess of the place, right? If you come to our incubator, sometimes one of the rooms, the students will come, they'll cut some, they'll make prototype of the cardboard. Next day, the entire place is all messy. Now, if I say, no, I want this place because no, this is the incubator center and this has to be very neat and clean all the time, where will they do all that stuff? Right. So when I say chaos, it's chaos in terms of physical, also chaos in terms of, sometimes these people will show up in the incubator in half shorts, right? And say, sir, I was sleeping, but I came because I need this to be done right now. Right? So a lot of those things, messiness in the system. And again, as long as it is within the boundary of discipline. So I'm not saying that we have to get done with the academic discipline, as long as it's not affecting the academic discipline, the sanctity of the academic institute. But I think we have a lot of freedom, that we have a huge boundary actually. The circle is very big. We make the circle very small and we say you have to operate within this circle, right? But if we can operate in the larger circle, as long as it's not affecting negatively,
What I will always say, that we are boundaryless.
yeah. So
So we
that
should
you can talk
embrace
about this, right?
boundarylessness.
Ideally,
Yeah.
there should be no boundaries, but I think I also understand, being a part of the academic system, that there are, of course, certain things you cannot. A student cannot just show up half naked in the incubator whenever he wants. So he can do it outside, right? So there are certain things you cannot, of course, allow, but there's a lot more we can allow that than we are actually allowing right now. And if we let that chaos happen, right? Sometimes they'll break things. Sometimes they'll be a little bit late to the classrooms, because that student is building something. I used to have a student at Symbiosis. He used to do wedding photographies. He would do photography shoots till 3-4 in the night. Next morning, 10 a.m. class, he'll come 5 minutes late. His eyes are red. He says, I have not slept. Now, what do I do as a faculty? Do I ask him to get out of the classroom because he was 5 minutes late, but he was building something last night? He was being an entrepreneur that night, right? So do I punish him just for, and in those 5 minutes, probably all that I've done in the classroom is recap of the last class. Right? So I think those are the small things. If we start embracing that chaotic aspect individually, and you don't need the management's approval for everything. So there are certain things we as faculty have control on.
So
We
it's
can do that.
curiosity,
It's curiosity, confidence,
confidence,
connections, and chaos. Right? So
connections, and
curiosity and
confidence.
confidence, when you're talking to the student, and connection and embracing chaos is something you keep doing on a constant basis. It happens in the background.
So my 2 cents on it about curiosity and killing, because once we are trained and somebody comes with an idea, and then we say, okay, we start validating that idea.
Yes.
What I learned in one of my training programs as a mentor is one simple word. It's only one word. Anybody comes with an idea, and you can go on and go on with that same word. tell me more.
Tell me more. Yeah, that's very
So
interesting.
you
So
say,
yeah.
this is how it is going to, sir.
Yeah.
I am going to do this. Okay, tell me
Yeah.
more.
In fact,
I think all mentors
yes.
should learn.
I think
am
that's a very,
so
very,
thankful
very
to my
interesting point.
mentors
That's a very interesting
that
point.
I learned that, and that tell me more opens
A lot of
so
doors.
many Pandora
Yes.
boxes.
So,
Yeah.
and it makes the student feel that I'm being heard, somebody's
Yes.
giving value, right? So I
Yeah.
think the easiest and most powerful, simplest way of, we talk about being empathetic, expressing empathy, right? Showing empathy is tell me more, right?
Yes, I
And
think we should display.
yeah,
okay.
you tell me, in fact, and we keep
Outside
saying, right,
every faculty
yes.
member's cabin, I think it should be there.
So,
Tell me more.
Yeah. So but again, I'll tell you, that's very easy to say, but it's very difficult to implement, especially the faculty members.
Difficult to practice.
Because as faculty, we are used to be on the other side of speaking, right? So for us, listening to somebody else speaking, forget about the students. If a colleague or even if some senior is speaking, or when we go to faculty development program and we are on the other side, I know how difficult it becomes for us to sit for 1 hour and listen, because we put us on that side, we can speak for 5 hours.
But I have a solution for it.
Yeah.
We were discussing this in one of the forums, and it's very difficult to practice.
Yeah.
Really.
Very difficult.
But then I said we should bring it from the kitchen. So it should start from husband-wife interaction.
Interesting.
So no fights, and you just keep saying that.
Tell
Tell me
me,
more.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. In fact, now since you brought that point, because I keep reading a lot of stuff about psychology and all. So I think this is one of the techniques that even I think the intelligence agencies, they use in the interrogations when they bring in a suspect, right? So they say when you initial time when you have a suspect, especially some small player from a gang or something, and you want him to rat out the bigger players, right? The only thing is you keep asking him, tell me more about it.
Tell me
And 2 times, 3 times you ask, he'll give you some mugged up, ready-made answer, that the scripted answers. But after 5, 6, 7 attempt, he'll end up slipping some detail which he was not prepared for. So
wonderful.
So,
I think.
that's
very
that's
interesting
that's the
to
power
know,
of it. Yeah.
these 4 C's. And so let us come to students, because our larger audience and the purpose, this is all for students basically. So let us come to students. So you have mentored many startups, you have came across a lot of startups, so many interactions at different incubation centers and forums, like I think you have been part of Eureka at IIT Bombay also. So what is that one thing you have seen in successful entrepreneurs? I will say, not startups.
Yeah.
No, I learned it. Okay. So what is that one quality you see that is consistently you have seen in those entrepreneurs?
So again, we can attribute to a lot of those qualities, leadership, communication, and all. But I think if I had to see a pattern, right, it is the comfort level and willingness to embrace ambiguity and uncertainty, right? So how well they are able to proceed when there's a lot of uncertainty on the path or ambiguity on the path.
Tolerance
I think that tolerance to ambiguity we talk about, right? And it goes from the basic. Actually, if you go to fundamentals, right? A normal talk, when we say entrepreneurship and innovation, right? Essentially, what we're meaning is there is an element of doing something new, right? When I say
Yes.
otherwise, that's how we also compare entrepreneurship with typical established businesses and all,
Yes.
right? This is who is a trader, who is a businessman, who's an entrepreneur. So in some way, it's implied, whether we say it explicitly or not, but it's implied that there has to be some element of doing, and it could be very small part of it. It could be a tech part, it could be the business model part, right?
That's
It could
value.
Huh,
Should
huh,
provide
some
me
value.
some additional
some value, and that's something that's new. You're trying to do something unique or something new,
Yes.
right? And when I say I'm trying to do something new, what I'm essentially saying is that I'm walking on a path nobody else has walked,
Yes.
right? Because if somebody has already been on the exact same path, then that's not a new path for me. And when I'm walking on a path that is that nobody's walked, I have not walked before, nobody else has walked before, I don't know that path, right? I don't know where there's a pothole, I don't know if there's a lion or a tiger going to be there on the way, right? I don't know if there are going to be some dacoits or some robbers on the way, right? So there's huge uncertainty. Now, if I sit over here before I begin, I say I will start my journey only if I all the data mapped out. Only if I exactly know at what place there's a speed breaker, at what place there's going to be a pothole, and what's the expected timing for a tiger.
Like a manufacturing company.
Set
targets,
yes,
everything is ready.
Yeah, that works in established business because when you have the data points, right? But here you will never have all the data points, and then you will never start, right? So unless you have that comfort with uncertainty, right, and ambiguity, that okay. And when I say that, I'm not saying that you just jump blindly, right? That's one quality of entrepreneurs, that they try to minimize it to the extent possible. But no matter how much efforts you put in, no matter how much data you collect, how much market research, we talk about design thinking, empathy, and all those things. But despite doing all that, you will never have 100% accurate data prediction. Right? Some part of it still will be uncertain. There will be ambiguity, and you have to take that leap of faith.
You never know the macroeconomic
You never know.
situation.
You never know. A lot of things will happen, right? So suddenly something will go wrong, right? Everything is going fine. Suddenly there will be a war happening. The gas prices will go up, and you don't know how that will affect your business dynamics. So that uncertainty, I think so. Now I read this statement somewhere that and it was about life, but I think it applies to life also, but more in the context of entrepreneurship. That if you want to succeed in life or entrepreneurship, you have to start being comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? So because that's uncertainty makes you uncomfortable. So I normally do this. Sometimes when I talk to students just to explain them, I just ask a bunch of students. I say, I have a task. I want 5 volunteers. Who is willing to volunteer, right? And out of 100 students sitting, or 2 or 3 or 5 people will stand up and they'll come without asking what the task is.
Yes.
And then I'll say, okay, I have one more task. The task is that you have to get up and some simple activity. I'll say, okay, you have to come and touch that door.
And everybody will come.
And almost half of the class gets up, right? So that's the difference. I say, these people, the people who came earlier, 5, these have high tolerance for uncertainty and ambiguity. They got up and said, what's the worst this man is going to ask us? He's not going to ask us to strip down in front of the entire class. Kya hi karwa lenge? At the worst, he'll ask us, okay, murga ban jao. Right? Or he'll say, sing a song, dance, or maybe tell a joke, what he will do. So we'll see what happens. So that's the quality I think pushes. And if you look at all the entrepreneurs and even great leaders in that sense, right? They are willing to go down a path and say, I don't know the data, I don't know how it will turn out. I have tried my best to anticipate what will come.
And now they have extended it to, I think, agility and resilience.
Yes. The same thing.
Same quality.
Same
stretch more.
Yes, I think that's where.
Same quality.
Right? I think resilience also, if you are not comfortable with uncertainty, then you cannot be resilient as well.
Yes. So let us come to incubation centers, because now you have been heading a wonderful incubation center as a chief executive officer, but not every institute is having an incubation center. So when they are trying to do something meaningful, when they don't have incubation center, when they are trying to promote entrepreneurship, what are the small steps or baby steps an institution? Because the data at national level says there are around 1,000 odd incubators in the country, and we know that how many of them are really active. Maybe around 40% of them are really very good, and 30% of them are part of association of incubation centers. But you look at, we have around 45 to 50,000 institutions if you take all the colleges, higher education institutions. We have innovation councils in around 16,000 plus institutions, but still very few have incubation centers. So what is your message to these institutions when they are trying to tread on this path? Because there is no option today. You have to promote innovation entrepreneurship while we are moving towards or we are having a goal at national level as Viksit Bharat. And if you narrow it down to your personal goals also, wealth creation and all that. So what are those baby steps, or what is that one meaningful step institution should start with if they do not have incubation center?
Okay. So again, since I ended up venturing into a lot of things, I did a little bit of study on neuro-linguistic programming, as you know. So I end up catching words a lot. That's a good or bad habit, I don't know. So I think when people talk about it, they say, oh, we have to start an incubator. Right? I say, why do you want to start an incubator? You start incubation. Right? So incubation and incubator are different.
So incubator is a facility.
You can have incubation without having a physical incubator, right? So the moment you have that clarity that, I don't necessarily need an incubator as a place. I can start with incubation and then gradually move it. I think it takes away a lot of burden from you. Okay, where will I get the space? Where will I get the lab? Where will I get a separate manpower, right? So I think if not, incubator probably will come later, but you can start with incubation. Right? And incubation is not only about space, right? In fact, these days everything is moving virtual. We have a space in the incubator, and hardly any startup come and use it. They say we are happy because most of them are sitting on their laptop doing something, right? So space, earlier I think 10 years ago, 15 years ago maybe, that was a huge thing, that if you have to have an incubator, you must have a space, office space, right? Of course, right? But this, of course, some of them still need it. We do have people who come and use the facility, but that's not should not be a roadblock, should not be an obstacle. Right? And then second is, so when you talk about incubation, then we have to understand what exactly incubation is. I think the reason this comes in, okay, we want to set up an incubation or incubator, but it requires this and that, and we are unable because we don't actually understand the core purpose of incubation. Right?
Many of them say that we have not yet formed a section in
Section
company.
company, yeah, exactly. So
we have not yet received a
we
grant.
don't have a grant, we don't have Niti Aayog ka, AIM ka, AIC or that DST, IIT, or MIT ka grant and all those things, right? So that's what I'm talking about. Incubation can start without all of that. And there are, I think I have seen institutes doing well without a Section 8 company, without having those grants, and they're supporting because they understand the core of incubation, right? And what is the core of incubation? So this is what I've been talking for the past few months now. In fact, I think my own understanding has evolved about incubation. So I think the very core purpose of incubation, why does a startup come to incubator in the first place, right? They can build a startup on their own, right? And I say a startup, when they're building a startup, they have some, they are awake at night, right? At 2 a.m., 3 a.m., a founder is not able to sleep, right? Because he has a lot of risk on the journey. He's taking a part of that's uncertain, ambiguous path. He's traded on that path, and so on that path there are a lot of challenges, a lot of issues, a lot of risk, and some or the other of challenge or risk keeps him awake at 3 a.m. And that is why he comes to the incubator. That you help me sleep peacefully at night. Can you help me do that, right? And I think if you understand that part, if I have to help him sleep peacefully at night, I need to understand what is keeping him awake. Right, and we talk about what are all the challenges and what we this when we do incubation manager training program also. So I talk there as well that all the founder challenges or risks you can categorize them into 4 major buckets, right? So any risk, any challenge, any problem that the founder is facing, it could either be related to market, right? So basic, right? Market, right? There's market issue that do I even have a market for my product? Will people buy it? Will people like my product, right? And market is both customers and competitors, right? What is the competition in the market, right? Will I be able to survive with the competition? Today I launch a product, can tomorrow Reliance jump into it and kill me in a day, right? So these are the worries that keep them awake, right? Who will buy my product? Will I have enough customers, right? So that's the market risk or market challenge. Can we help the founders with that, right? Second, of course, is the making risk or making issue, right? Can I build it? I want to make that product, right? So I need lab space, I need machinery, I need equipment. If I'm building an AI model, I need that server space. I cannot possibly, afford a server on my own if I'm doing very heavy models, right? So where will I get that server space?
Converting
right?
that raw prototype to a product.
To product, right? I need technical guidance sometimes. I need maybe understanding of IP. Am I infringing on somebody else's IP? Right? So those are also the issues when it comes to making part of it. So those are that's the second bucket of issues that bother a founder a lot. The third bucket is the management part. I say that management is basically the team part, right? Okay, is the team capable enough, right? So first is the founder himself. At times, is he good with finance if it is required? Can he communicate the idea? Can he articulate the idea? Then beyond the founder, is the team good? Where do I get a good team? How do I make the best out of my team? Because as a startup, you don't have a lot of money to throw at your team, right? So you need good people to work at a lesser salary, but passionate people who are mission oriented.
You mentioned about building an entrepreneur, not a startup.
So you have to build. An entrepreneur now has to build his team as well, right? So that's a very important challenge. And then there are we have seen a lot of startups shutting down because of co-founder conflicts at later stage, right?
Oh.
Right. So at early stage, as well there, and that team problem is not only at the early stage. At the later stage, when you go to the scaling stage, because the skill set required in the beginning and the skill set required now when you are scaling up. And that's why the people suggest that once you get the scaling stage, you hire a professional CEO or something, right? Because the same founder who took it from 0 to 1 probably may not be able to take it from 1 to 100. So that's another thing based on the stage, maybe that those are the issues that are troubling him. And the fourth, which gets most attention, is the money risk, the money issue, right? And when I say money, it's not only about the funding, but it's also about sustainability of the business. It's about his revenue model. Will I have enough customers? Is my price point right? Will the people buy? So I think overall, if you see at a macro level, these are the 4 kind of challenges: the management, money, making, and market that a founder is struggling with. And I normally tell the incubator that if you want to start incubation, can you pick one of this, which aligns with your existence. So we talk about effectuation principles and all, bird in hand principle. Who am I? What network do I have? What connections do I have? Based on that strength, which of one risk, if I can just pick one of those risks and say, okay, I will help my students or my founders with that one risk, right? I am an engineering college, I got very fantastic labs, I have supercomputer, I have prototype, like I can help the founders with the making this. Okay, I may not be able to help you with market research, I may not be able to give you funding, I don't have capability to train your team. But yes, you want to build a prototype. That part of your journey, I take care. For the remaining part, then I go back to the 4Cs. I say, I will connect you with it.
Even if you make him a good maker.
Yeah.
That's
so
enough.
If you can do enough, right? that you can do. In some cases, so I say, for example, there are colleges that have, or universities that have their own medical college and hospital. Now, if there is a startup that's in the medtech domain, right? All that I can do is help them with clinical trials.
Access.
Yeah, I can help them with the clinical trial. I don't have to do with anything else, but I have this expertise. I'm willing to open the doors of my hospital for any startup work in that domain, and of course, following the process and all the guidelines. Yes. But I will help you with the clinical trials part of it. I'm helping you reduce that part. Now that doesn't require that doesn't need separate facility. You don't have to hire a separate CEO of the incubation for that. It's just the system happening, one person coordinating, and can you help the startups? And once you start doing that, I think slowly then you start working on one risk, and then you'll start building synergies, start building connections, and then it's okay, now I can help with the other risk as well. And now I can go to the third risk as well.
I think institutions will also go up in the maturity.
In the maturity level. Right? So each institute has their own unique DNA. They have their own, in some cases, can I just help with my brand name?
Yes.
Right. So that also helps sometimes. Okay, if nothing, or as I said, there are institutes that are 40-50 years old institutes, tier 2 institutes, not very big institutes, single standalone college, but they're 30-year-old. They have alumni now working in big companies, right? So that's another thing. I think, can I leverage my alumni network and do that? So one thing I think is shift from that incubator thinking to the incubation thinking, and I say, okay, what can I do with the resources that I already have? Can I pick one of these risk or challenge buckets, and can I build something around that?
You can still promote innovation and entrepreneurship without an incubation center.
Incubator. So
with incubation.
With incubation, yeah, right. So
wonderful. It's a learning process always.
It's a learning, I think,
so on every aspect, building an entrepreneur and then incubation. Now let us come to two questions. Maybe I'd like to ask simultaneously. One is now you have been a teacher. Then you became entrepreneurship educator, but you have been into the ecosystem in teaching in universities, I think for last 15-16 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm not wrong, 2010, I think you started your teaching career. So what is one change that you would like to make in the academic institution?
That's a difficult question, because you're asking a faculty to choose one, I think.
Yeah.
And I can actually write a book on that if I want to. All of us can.
Yes.
Yeah, because we have strong opinions about, and again, not in a negative way, but because we care for the system, right? And I normally say that when I go out and when I talk, if I talk something about the education system, I say because I'm a part of that community, I'm a part of that fraternity, and if I don't show the mirror, who else will? Yes. Right? So
I'm proud of that community.
Yeah. So if somebody within the fraternity comes and shows the mirror, I wouldn't like anybody from outside coming and talking about the fraternity, then I'll fight back. But when I am a part, I have that right. Right? It's my community, it's my tribe, so I can talk about this. A lot of things, but one thing I have started realizing lately, and I've seen is, and that's something very easy to do also. So we can talk about a lot of things. You build this system, you do that, and all. But one thing we have in the Indian academic system is a very strong, very deeply rooted permission culture. Permission culture, right? For everything you need a permission, right? And permission doesn't, the buck doesn't stop at the faculty or the HOD. For everything, I just have to go to the dean or here and there, right? So, and in terms of, in the context of entrepreneurship, I'm talking. I'm not saying, of course, for your day-to-day administrative work and law, you need a process. You need a process. I'm not saying that otherwise the system will go haywire. Everybody will do whatever they want. So, for your day-to-day functioning, your academic purposes and all, you need, of course, you need those finance and all. You need a proper system, proper approval process and all. But what I'm talking about here, when I say permission culture, is the context of promoting entrepreneurship for students. So, for example, there's a student, finally student doing a project, and he's building something, and suddenly while he starts building something, he starts to realize that, okay, if I tweak this a bit, if I change my topic a little bit here and there, this could become a startup. This could become a goal. But for that to happen, right, he has to go to his supervisor, his guide, then the guide will first say, oh, no, I will not, because this was approved initially when you present it to the committee, then it has to go to the HOD, then the HOD will say, okay, the project committee or whatever it is,
no
they have to, So by the time he gets the approval to shift it, right? The semester is gone. Right. So same things. Sometimes a lot of times a student will come and say, "Sir, I just found out." And one thing in the startup ecosystem, because the ecosystem also operates as startup, so a lot of events are put together at a very short notice. Right. There are very few events that are very well planned, especially at the government level. When the events happen, they are planned with a horizon of 6 months, 4 months. Like you talk about Startup Makum or AI Impact Summit that happened 6 months before we plan. But otherwise, most incubators, even institutes, when you do events related to entrepreneurship, they are planned at 8 days, 15 days, 1 month notice. Sometimes even 2, 3 days notice as well. We do.
And stakeholders come together. And they plan
sometimes
something.
happens, right? And so a student comes and says, "Sir, I just found out." Or sometimes the event is planned, but the student gets to know about it just in time. So, Monday there is a business plan competition happening or this thing happening, and Friday the student comes and says, "I want to attend that, but I'll be missing 2 lectures." Right? Now, how many institutes that would be very easily possible for the student, because then the faculty doesn't have the authority, and even the project guide doesn't have the authority. Then he has to go to the HOD, then he has to justify why I'm going to miss those 2 classes, right? And that could be something. I'm not saying the student should be allowed to go anywhere. But it's a genuinely good event, right? That's just one example I'm giving. So I think that permission culture, and what happens is, because in every small things, we have that culture set up. If we give a template for our assignments, if the student has to change the template, he has to take your permission. Right? Because you gave this 8 slides, I said, why are there 9 slides? Right? So that's what I'm talking about. And then what happens, the student starts thinking that anything I have to do, I have to take permissions. Right? So you're killing that entrepreneur mindset. And entrepreneurship doesn't thrive on permissions. Of course, as places you want to apply for a license for some clinical trials. That's a different story. But other places, you have to give them that confidence that, okay, you can go ahead and do stuff. Even with when we do entrepreneurship summits, right? So the summit is supposed to promote entrepreneurship. It's supposed to be the epitome of entrepreneurship on the campus. And even in that summit, that speaker, what color shawl that the speaker is going to get, the student head doesn't have any say in that. This will go. Yeah, some senior person.
So this records me a movie, I guess. I think which movie, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's Munna Bhai. So for everything you have to fill a form.
Yeah, Munna Bhai MBBS. You have to fill a form for everything, right? So that's essentially what you're talking about. So of course, the hospital needs a system, but when there's a case like this, right, you cannot let the person die just because he has not filled the form. So same case, if there's good thing happening, and I think some institutes that's there. We have that at our university. That thankfully we have that very fast system. So we can write to the VC, and we can directly reach out to the vice chancellor and get it done very soon, right? Because that's how the structure is. But I think not every place, not every institute has that. And in fact, so sometimes people reach out to you, and I think you might have experiences that somebody who's heading the entrepreneurial cell will reach out and saying, "Sir, I want to invite you as a speaker," and then it's okay. First, they'll check your dates, everything, and then say, "Guys, we give me a profile. I need to get this approved by the vice chancellor." Right? So,
I still remember.
Those kind of things, when they happen, they don't surface very immediately. And then what happens? Sometimes then people stop taking initiatives. And for the small, the student, if it's a student, it's a faculty, like, okay, for the small change, if I have to go and take 4 signatures, I would rather continue doing what I'm
afraid of doing it next year. I still remember. So I used to give an assignment. We could do it successfully, but I used to give an assignment. You go to an exhibition. It was, I think, Kisan, India's largest agricultural exhibition. You go to Kisan. It was an assignment of 30 marks. In groups, you visit Kisan. So I gave an assignment and I did not take permission. So for assignment, you should not have permission. But then, for students to go there, the bus was required. And then, when the bus is there, then finance,
a lot of
finance
comes into picture. Yeah.
So, and then the point came, you did not ask for assignment. And then I said that it's my class. Okay, I have designed the assignment. It's requirement of the assignment that they need to go there, and now we have to figure it out. So one last question, very quickly. One quick advice to the students who really want to create, because see, today there is a lot of energy and passion in students. They have started understanding the macro and macroeconomic scenario also. Students have also understood that entrepreneurship is about now new ideas, new products, and value creation, problem solving, and they want to really create something meaningful. Your piece of advice, one suggestion from your side to our students.
So I think again, if I have to look at it, that there are 3 aspects to building a startup enterprise or anything in life. Is why do I want to do it, right? What do I want to do? What I want to build? What startup I want to do? Why I want to do it? And how would I do it, right? And what I tell is that your focus should be the first focus should be on why. Why in the first place you want to build a startup? Why that particular customer segment? Why that particular product? So people come to me and say, "Sir, I want to do this." Some startup in let's say with a social cause helping underprivileged students with education. So I asked, why do you want to do this? So because there are so many students, so many kids in the streets, they are not educated. I care for that cause, and I want to do something. I say, then go and join an NGO that works in the same domain. Why do you want to have a startup for that? You could do the same thing by multiple other means, right? Or go join a government department that's helping them and contribute there rather than starting a startup. So that's one thing. Why is something that you have to be clear. And second, what you want to do, right? And the third part, that's the how part. I think a lot of times the students and even founders get stuck into the how part of it. How will I do it? How will I get the technology? How will I get the? I think for the how part, there's extensive support available, right from the Ministry of Education to DST, to NITI Aayog, from the government, even private organizations like you have TAI, you have Advani Foundation, and incubators. So the how part, there are people, there are organizations out there to help you figure that out. If your why and what is clear.
Why should be clear.
Why should be clear and what you want to do should be clear. How part, I think, but usually what happens, I think people get into the how first. I want to start, and I've met so many students, I'm sure you would have, sir, I have this idea, but I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to code. I don't know how to build that product, right?
Yes.
And the start with how part of it, and the moment you start with how, so I think Tony Robbins says, I follow him a lot, and I'm a huge fan of him. So he says a lot of people get stuck in the tyranny of how, right? That how will I do this, and then you don't know, and then you stop.
Yes.
So if you remove the how part, how will happen? Is my why and what clear? I think if that's what the students start focusing on, they will be able to at least take the first step in the journey of entrepreneurship.
Wonderful. So I think, thank you so much, Professor Ismail. And so I think start with why is the message from Professor Ismail Akbani, as Simon Sinek rightly
Again,
mentioned.
another favorite author.
Both of us admire him,
yeah.
I guess. So thank you so much, Professor Ismail, for being with us and having a wonderful time with us, and for this wonderful interaction and this podcast.
It's been a pleasure and honor, because I started my career at the Engineering Institute, and when you are part of Engineering Institute, AICTE is one of the organizations that you look at. You got AICTE approvals and all. So it's coming over here, sitting in the AICTE studio, I think again, even after I left the Engineering Institute, I think in a way it's just completing a circle back. So thank you for the opportunity, and I really hope that the conversation actually helps some student entrepreneurs out there in some way. I think.
Definitely.
Then this time is all, and I also want to thank the entire team behind this, the crew that's putting up so much of efforts. So even if one student gets ignited out of this, I think all this effort is worth it.
Thank you so much,
Pleasure.